Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I'm super excited to be having this conversation today with Drew Moran, Chief Development Officer at Nourishing Hope. He came to us by way of our co-host, Sherry Quam Taylor. Sherry, thank you for the introduction.
I am bringing you one of my most fun and best clients today. So I'm excited to have Drew on the show today.
It's really cool. Well, Drew, gosh, we've like pumped you up so much. No pressure, huh?
Better
Well, I
perform.
appreciate it.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about the marriage between innovation and development and looking at ways to make your organization grow, maybe in a manner that you haven't thought of. And so this is going to be really a fun conversation and one that is so incredibly necessary. So I'm really excited, Drew, to have you on with us and along with Sherry. We are always excited to mention our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. But more importantly, I get to share the stage today with Sherry Quam Taylor, the amazing CEO of Quam Taylor and one of our intrepid co-hosts. Okay, in the green room, Drew, you and Sherry broke my heart by saying that you're in Chicago where it's in the 50s. I'm in Arizona where it's going to be over 100. It's double the temperature.
I think I would take the 100 at this point.
Ooh.
It's late May in Chicago, and I feel like we still got a few more weeks to go.
Oh, well, bless your hearts, because man, we're like seeing our weather go leave, and so we always get sad when our cool climes leave. So, but Drew, let's talk about the weather in your organization because you are the development director of Nourishing Hope. I've got two questions for you. Talk to us about what Nourishing Hope does, and then if you can weave in the trajectory of your career within this amazing organization.
Yes. Well, again, thank you so much, Julia and Sherry, for having me. So excited and honored to have the opportunity to share the important work of Nourishing Hope, the work that I've been doing for almost 12 years now. Nourishing Hope is a 55-year-old organization. We were called Lakeview Pantry, and we served just the north side of Chicago for many of those years. But through the use of technology, innovation, and engaging new funders, we have been able to grow now to a $20 million organization that's able to provide a significant amount of meals. We have Chicago's only online market, which just had its 100,000th service to people in the community, which we can talk more about. We also provide absolutely free mental health care by clinicians and social services to make sure that the people that come to us for help, and that's over 55,000 folks served multiple times throughout the year, 200,000 of those services, so that they are able to be treated with the respect and dignity that all people deserve. And really, I feel like that happens when you're able to see the whole person, right? It's hard to come to a food pantry. It's hard to walk through the doors of somewhere and ask and say, hey, I'm vulnerable, I need support. And so that's what Nourishing Hope does so incredibly well, is everyone who walks through our doors receives a smile, but then they also receive the accessibility, right? And the technology needed in order to access those services with dignity and respect.
Wow. It's such an interesting premise because if you have to solve your immediate need of feeding your family, you probably have other issues. And so you've got to get to that point where you can then begin to find solutions or get help in other areas. So I love that about Nourishing Hope, that it's really, as you used that phrase, which I love, wraparound services. It's such a powerful thing, and not a lot of pantry services seem to do that, or they don't have the bandwidth, right? They're just like, we got to get the food in and we got to get the food out. And And so it's really interesting, Drew, to hear this.
Right. And I've actually, been lucky enough to work with the organization over 12 years, starting out as a volunteer manager, seeing thousands of folks. We see 7,000 volunteers a year, and scheduling and organizing that many people requires some technology, right? I was able to serve as a clinician. I went to grad school to make that happen, and was able to provide direct clinical services to the community. Served on our leadership team, managing our CRM and other technologies. Many things I've been able to do, but really, what that's been able to help me with is to see all the facets of the organization that go into making a stellar client experience that helps people feel like we're able to see their needs, and that we're able to meet them in lower barriers as much as possible.
Yeah. And I will tell you, Julia, I mean, even meeting one with this group, I mean, this is in their DNA. Like, I probably after the first meeting, I was like, okay, this is not a food pantry. Like, they are providing hope in so many different ways. And so you just see this at every level of all their amazing team that I've been able to work with. It's really inspirational. And I think I have a little soft spot because it is in my own city too.
Right.
So it's been really inspirational to watch.
And we also know that, it's difficult to come into a food pantry. And so when you enter one and you're given a smile, right, and you're treated with dignity and you're given resources, you are much more likely, right, to say, maybe I can trust these folks, right? Maybe I can trust a therapist.
Yeah.
Maybe I really know that they will provide me with services that see me as a whole person. And that is really the power of it.
I love it. Well, Drew, let's dig in a little bit, because one of the things that to have such immense growth, to serve so many people, have so many staff members, and a trajectory of success, you've had to engage in technology. And you advise us that smart tech is no longer just like, oh, it's such a nice thing to have. It's a need to have. It's got to go into those budgets. What are you seeing here?
Well, first, I want to say that it is an investment, right? We got to be straightforward about that, right? You have to invest in order to grow, in order to build your services. And I think what we're seeing is that folks are reacting, right? The online market, which was launched in 2019 before the pandemic, which was very, very good timing and some foresight, it's a full suite, right? It also connects with our CRM that also manages our donor information, volunteer information, right? We're seeing 7,000 volunteers a year. Our client information, electronic medical records, right? This is a big investment. But we found that when we were able to do that, we also were able to find funders who are excited about it, right? To find donors, and to find people who say, this sort of service and access is long overdue in the food world, in the wraparound social services space that we're in. And, we're still able to be a local organization. We've got 4 locations across the city where people are able to access services. But that sort of investment that we made, and the time and strategy that it took to do that, paid off not only for the people we serve, right, which is the priority, but in drawing people to our mission and saying, wow, I'm so excited. I want to be a part of this. And then they tell people they know, and then they tell folks, oh, I know a guy who's really good at that. Right. And then you're able to figure out the stuff you don't quite know yet. And you're able, and my recommendation there is, right, we're always, if we're growing, we're leaning into things that we don't quite yet understand. And so you need to find folks who are values aligned with you and who are experts. And there are so many people who are experts who want to give back and just need the right way.
Yeah. I always say, like, we need to work on attracting donors who get it. And that's like, they've used this excellence in just running a great business, investing in their technology, doing things well. It has attracted an incredible group of supporters and volunteers And so often I think, organizations are fearful of saying like a donor would never fund that, or they're going to think we're not being wise stewards. It is absolutely the opposite, result. And Nourishing Hope has really seen that, which is incredible.
Sherry, I love that you said that, because I have heard so many development directors, CEOs, and even boards that say, that's not sexy enough. We're not going to attract funders because technology, they don't understand it. They don't get it. And I love that you brought this forward, because they do get it, especially if they're in business for themselves or they're part of a larger team. They get what's going on behind the scenes and the infrastructure that has made them successful, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really appreciate that you've said that. Let's talk a little bit, Drew, about meeting clients where they are, and that includes the digital aspect,
Mhm.
as well as the privacy, and then this dignity quotient that sometimes we don't see all three of these coming together. How do you think about that at Nourishing Hope?
Well, for me, it all starts with understanding who the people are who really need help. And the MIT Living Wage Calculator says that in Chicago, Illinois, an average family of four needs to be making about $8,700 to meet all of their needs per month.
Oof.
That is a striking figure, right? You've got two parents and two kids who are trying to meet their child care needs, who are trying to make sure that they have good healthcare coverage so that they can get those mental health services that they need, and who are, using technology in their daily lives. It's a myth, and I cannot scream it from the rooftops loud enough, that folks who need access to emergency food, emergency services, and social services aren't on the internet, right? This is just this
Right.
outdated notion, and we have
Right.
got to shed it, because when we do not do that, we do a disservice to the folks, to all of those folks who are in need of support, to the 1 in 5 folks in Chicago, right, who find themselves each year in a food insecure situation. So, our goal is to think about how we can do things thoughtfully, right? Values aligned, but how we can do things more efficiently, while wrapping it in that quintessential respect. And really, one of those values we have is dignity, right? Dignity and respect. And that means dignity for people's information. It means dignity so that when someone comes through our doors, they're able to access the services in a way that's most appropriate for them. And we try to be smart about it. So when people go to the online market and they check out their food, they can put social services or mental health care into their cart, so that
Wow.
when they check out, a therapist,
Wow.
one of our fantastic social workers, right, reaches out and says, do you want to meet virtually? Right. So they're, or in person, right? Giving as many options as possible, making sure we have strong clinicians who are trained, and working ethically is really important. But when you think about it, people who have kids and are living their lives are busy folks. You're taking your kid to soccer, and you're working late, and all of the things that happen, and being able to check out on an online market, which is free food for you and your family, and then say, oh, I can, I don't have insurance, right? Or I don't have good enough insurance, or I can't afford that copay, and just you can put it in your cart, check out, and someone's going to reach out to you with a very short wait list. That's the sort of imagination and excitement that funders are looking for.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you use that word imagination, because I think that that is one of those things that we forget, is that we do have to sell concepts to people that will never probably ever understand what it's like to be a part of the working poor, that you work morning, noon, and night to exhaustion, and you still can't make ends meet. And so, where are these bridges that we have in society? And in many communities, they don't exist, right? And so I love that you've been able to understand how that is a value. I'm going to call it out, Sherry, a sales tool. It's an advantage to selling donor engagement.
Yeah, and it's authentic. Like, I think you can tell from Drew, they think abundantly. They are
Yeah.
problem solvers. They are curious. They put their money where their mouth is, and you know what? They've grown because of it.
Yeah.
They if you look at their growth bar chart, it is this. And so I really hope people even hear this and are inspired by, like, they've got their foot on the gas pedal and it's working and it's attracting their tribe, and the people they serve are benefiting from it. So they've just been a super, I think even encouraging group for me to work with because of it. Just that abundant mindset they've had since day one.
Well, it's great to think that sometimes, Sherry, we say these things and we don't really have somebody that we can point to say this is where it's working, right? I mean, it sounds good, abundance, be positive, and all of this, but then it's kind of like, yeah, that's easy to say, hard to do. Where is it working? And so to have you, Drew, on to hear and share these stories, it's very, very powerful. And so I want to ask you about flexible thinking, because it seems to me that you all have had, the opportunity to be creative. And with you, your tenure of more than a decade through many different stages, what a gift. I've got to believe you're the original flexible thinker of the group.
Well, when you have 100 volunteers coming in a day, and many of them are new, I always say if I ever hire anyone, it's going to be a volunteer manager and someone who has been able to inspire and get people excited to find whose people's skills. Speaking of flexibility, right? Finding what skill sets you have and putting them to use for the good of the community. It's easy when the mission is so powerful. And I just love people walking through the door and knowing we're there to do the work. We're there to make sure that people have what they need, and then figuring out how to make it happen. But really what it comes down to is making sure that your tribe, making sure that your board, making sure that your folks that are there with you are just as excited, right? And who might have a little more risk tolerance, right? Or who have the right mindset about, but when you think about entrepreneurialism, right, it always changes, right? Things are shifting. So you got to be responsive, and especially in a technological age, right, where technology is growing exponentially more quickly. Standard models don't work in business and won't continue to work. So if we in the nonprofit sector, who have the very important responsibility to meet the basic needs of folks, aren't thinking in this way, we're going to fall behind very quickly.
Wow, that gave me chills. Fall behind very quickly. Sherry, how do you see this when you're coaching clients and when you're working in this sector? How do you see this flexible thinking and this ability for some people to naturally embrace change, not be so fearful, get excited by it, versus others that they just get freaked out and it's more comfortable to stay with the old way?
Oh, I suppose it's a bunch of different things. I think it's, you know, I guess it probably starts at the top and in the leadership at the top. Like, I think everybody kind of takes their cue from leadership. Drew's part of the leadership team, and they keep things abundantly and foot on the gas pedal. And so I do find sometimes I have leaders who are a little bit more fearful or like maybe doubting how that would work, or and so I tell people your growth has way more to do with your comfort level, with investing, with spending, with budgeting, to your true need, than probably a lot of fundraising activities. Because if you don't have your sights set on something big and audacious and something really imaginative, that's going to solve these big problems that nonprofit leaders are solving in our country, like, it's going to be harder to raise money. And so I think Nourishing Hope is seeing that. They've been growing. I mean, year after year after year, and then P.S. Let's throw a pandemic in there, and so they've just risen to the occasion, and it's made them stronger, I think.
Wow. I'm Before we move on, I've got to ask Drew, did you have a model for your online store? Or did you all think of this up? yourself?
Okay, so we were lucky enough to work with a fantastic foundation called the Thier Family Foundation, who has been thinking about these sorts of things and wanted to, build and develop because they were seeing that, the way our society was changing. Things were working differently. People were picking up groceries on their way home from work, right, in the parking lot. People were ordering, and they were one of those funders who had that sort of vision, and so we found that we had a shared idea of something we wanted to do and create together. We had a future and forward thinking idea of what the world could look like for people who are in need of support. And of course, right, the first time it looks nothing like it did when we started, right? But that's how, when you do something new, you iterate, you learn, you figure out, what people really are looking for and how you can. I mean, honestly, at the beginning, people said, "What? I can go online and get free food, and make choices for me, that are appropriate for me religiously, culturally, focused on what my health needs are." These are all sorts of things that we knew we needed to make happen, but it was a marriage of finding the right partner to get it started, and now it continues to grow and develop and change.
Yeah. So let's talk about this then in terms of the nitty gritty, in terms of measuring impact and setting goals. When you had such an innovative idea, how do you even know, A, what to measure and how to set goals? Because as you made this great point, you've got to be open to change. The way things start out are not the way they end.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about these kind of direct services. I believe that putting food on the table for a family is an outcome in and of itself, right?
Mhm.
That's huge. It's the most basic outcome that a
Yeah.
parent can provide.
Yeah.
And so we are obviously tracking pounds of food, number of services, those sort of basic metrics, but telling the story of what these people's lives have become and changed, that is another sort of attractor for funders and for donors and for people who want to give to the mission. And so, we have our tracking mechanisms for our mental health services, cross-cutting measures. We are doing the best we can to continue to track our health outcomes and track more specifically what sort of nutrition we're able to provide, right? So on a quarterly basis, we're going through and we're saying, okay, what does a distribution look like for a family of four? What sorts of things do we need to be sourcing, identifying, right? What are the things that in the next few months we're going to have to be thoughtful about? Eggs, and how we make sure that we're able to continue to provide those. And so what I really try and do is, I try and say, what are the things that are important to us about how we can make our services for our clients better? And then I really think that in philanthropy in general, when you find your right partners, they also, want to have trust-based philanthropy in terms of outcomes. They want to see you say, these are the things that we want to accomplish, and this is how we want to improve, and these are the metrics that are going to help us get there. And when I work with folks who support us, I try and explain that passionately, so that they, are able to see the impact of their work, that impact continues to grow and evolve, and that we're aligned on what we need to make sure we're making the mission happen.
Amazing. Sherry, this is such an interesting time with the concept of working with development directors and trust-based philanthropy being more collaborative. What are you seeing along those lines? Do you have to start with an organization that has achieved a certain level of success before you can even venture into that area? Or do you think donors are more comfortable with this now?
I think it's growing. I think like from the first day, I feel like I see organizations kind of just take that brave stand of saying, we got to have an honest conversation about what makes this relationship a win-win. Where I think maybe the tone, even decade plus ago when I entered this industry, was like whatever the funder wants, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think we're just having more honest and authentic conversations earlier. And it's evolving, and it's changing. But gosh, if you're running a great business, like our Drew here today, and to be able to speak to the impact, to be able to speak to the strength, when they're killing it, I think they can kind of sit there really confidently and articulate what they need, and why this relationship would be a win-win. So I think it makes it a little easier, even though I wouldn't say fundraising is ever easy.
Well, and right, it's finding the people who share your values.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. If you're out there trying to make something big and different and change, you're going to draw folks who are also trying to do that. And being thoughtful about who those people are, because as a sometimes messy and evolving process happens, you got to have people there who are going to trust you, right, and who are going to be there to give that extra support, or we need expertise in XYZ, and then make that happen. And I think when you put a stake out there and you say, hey, this is where we want to be, not just because it's where we want to be, but because it is what the people we serve need, deserve, and desire, that can be infectious.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, I could talk to you all day long. We don't have that much more time left. And I mentioned in the green room, it goes by super fast. Our time on the nonprofit show speeds by. But I want to end with this discussion about changing the narrative around need. You talked about, going back to your funding partners with that authentic conversation and trust-based philanthropy thought leadership. How do you do this with tech?
I mean, it's a whole lot of conversations and a whole lot of education, right?
Yeah.
It's funders understanding the need to continue to learn, right? To be engaged in where they're investing, in who's leading those organizations and what's important to them. It's continuing to scream from the rooftops, which I try to paint what a family looks like here in Chicago that is facing food insecurity. I think people often think that only folks who are experiencing homelessness are
Right.
food insecure, right? Or only seniors, right? But no, it's two folks who are going are working overtime, right? Full time, and trying to take care of their kids and give their kids a life that has dignity. And I think the more we talk about that, and the more that we educate and share, because that's our job, right? The more that we will find that people want to get in on the action, and that they will also want to be a part of making people's lives better.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow, Sherry, this has got to be, for you as a professional, such an exciting time, such an exciting group to work with, because you get to see really great thought leadership that translates into success.
Absolutely. And they're one of those clients who is already doing such an awesome job that we're just like slightly, kind of dialing dials here and there. And so they just have been really, really a fun group. So thanks for being on today, Drew.
Yeah, it's an honor to work with you, and a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really been fun. I would encourage anyone who's been interested in this story, no matter what your service area is in the nonprofit sector, go to Nourishing Hope, CHI, and you can really get a feel for what they do, how they do it, how they integrate different programs. It's absolutely fascinating. Drew, the site's beautifully done to begin with. I mean, the marketing face of this is beautifully, beautifully done. So that's a lesson in itself for anyone out there in the nonprofit world.
I appreciate that. And I will just say nourishinghopeshy.org. And I'd also love to chat with you about the amazing work we're doing. And if you'd like to make a donation, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Ding, 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 ding.
Love it.
Sherry, this is great. How many of our guests ever come on and do that?
None, but he's fearless.
And I love it. Drew, you are my favorite guest, maybe of like the month. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm honored.
I love it. I think it's really great. And we did mistype that in. It's not .com, it's .org.
Thank you.
And so, thank you for highlighting that. Really a great conversation. And Drew, we wish you well, and we need to have you come back on next time you have something that's really innovative that we can all learn from, or something that a milestone that you've reached, because this has been just a fabulous conversation. You know what also is fabulous here for us are our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraiser Friday. These are the folks that are with us day in and day out. As we end each and every episode, we like to remind everyone to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone.